Son humiliates mother and moves in with father, but he didn't expect what his father would do. In a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, the constant hum of the sewing machine was the soundtrack of Michelle's life. A 45-year-old woman with skillful hands and a heart full of dreams, not just for herself, but especially for her son, Ryan. Michelle worked as a seamstress at a sewing boutique during the day and took on extra jobs at home at night. Her nimble and precise fingers transformed simple fabrics into works of art, a skill she had perfected over years of practice and dedication. Each stitch was also an investment in Ryan's future, her 20-year-old son who was in his third year of medical school. Ryan was a bright and determined young man. From a young age, he had shown a fascination with everything related to medicine, perhaps inspired by the stories his mother told about his grandfather, who was a respected doctor. There was no doubt in his mind that he would follow in his footsteps. Despite the long hours of work, Michelle never stopped supporting Ryan in his studies. She sacrificed personal comforts to ensure that nothing was missing for his academic progress. Ryan, in turn, showed gratitude, often helping his mother with small household chores and dedicating himself fully to his studies to avoid disappointing her. Neighbors and friends frequently praised Michelle for her dedication, calling her an exemplary mother. However, what many didn't see was the weight of responsibility that Ryan felt on his shoulders, growing with each passing semester, and how this slowly began to change his view of the world and himself. In this setting of struggle and love, Michelle and Ryan's relationship unfolded, ready to face the challenges that life would throw their way. Their story was just beginning, and Ryan's choices would soon test the bond between mother and son in ways they never imagined. As time passed, Ryan delved deeper into his medical studies. Surrounded by classmates from higher social classes, he began to feel the weight of his humble origins. Although initially grateful for his mother's sacrifices, the constant contact with friends who flaunted luxuries and conveniences began to distort his perception and gratitude. Ryan began to stand out in his class, receiving praise from professors and admiration from classmates. His academic success inflated his ego, and slowly he began to feel entitled to more than he had. This feeling was solidified the day he decided to buy a top-of-the-line smartphone. Michelle discovered the purchase when the credit card bill arrived in the mail. She held the bill in her hands, trembling slightly, the paper crumpling under her fingers. The amount was a sum they couldn't afford, months of her hard work spent on a single luxury item. She felt betrayed, not by the money itself, but by what that choice represented. That night, as they ate a simple meal of rice and beans, the silence between mother and son was dense, heavy with the weight of unspoken words. Michelle broke the silence with a calm yet firm voice. "Ryan, we need to talk about the phone and about money." Ryan looked at his mother, his eyes quickly averting. "I know, Mum. I just thought that I deserve it after all the hard work in my studies. I understand that you want the best, son, and I never wanted to deny you anything you deserve," Michelle responded, sadness permeating her words. "But we need to be realistic about what we can and cannot afford. This is not the time for luxuries." Dinner continued in more silence, each lost in their thoughts. Ryan was beginning to realize that his choices affected not just himself, but also the woman who had given everything to see him succeed. The night ended with a feeling of discomfort hanging in the air. The tension between Ryan and Michelle reached a critical point after the discovery of the irresponsible phone purchase. The atmosphere at home became heavy, laden with a bitter silence that only preceded the impending storm. Ryan, though initially feeling justified in his purchase, began to realize the impact of his choices on the already tight family finances. However, Instead of admitting his mistake, he anchored himself in a defensive arrogance, fueled by his growing desire for a lifestyle they clearly couldn't afford. On a gloomy afternoon, with the sky heavy with clouds, the tension finally erupted. Michelle, seeing the bank statement again, could no longer contain her frustration. She confronted Ryan in the small kitchen, where he was making a sandwich. "Ryan, we need to talk about your choices. This phone, you know we can't afford it without sacrificing other necessities," Michelle began, her voice trembling but firm. Ryan, feeling cornered, reacted with surprising intensity. "I deserve this, Mum. I deserve more than this life you can offer me. I'm studying day and night, striving to be someone, and a phone is the least I should have." Ryan's words fell like a blow, leaving Michelle momentarily breathless. The harshness in his voice, the lack of gratitude, cut deeper than the financial argument itself. Michelle, with tears forming in her eyes, replied with a voice that carried both pain and resolve. "If that's how you feel, Ryan, then maybe you should really seek the life you think you deserve. Go live with your father, Adam. He has the means to give you those luxuries you value so much." Ryan, surprised by his mother's suggestion and the intensity of the confrontation, remained silent. He hadn't expected his outburst to lead to this proposal. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with unspoken words and hurt feelings. Michelle, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak, continued, "I've always done my best for you, Ryan, but if my best isn't enough, maybe it's time for you to see for yourself what life with your father is like." Ryan, still in shock, didn't respond immediately. He looked at his mother, seeing the pain in her eyes, and for the first time realized the weight of his words and actions. The reality of what he had said and his mother's suggestion began to sink in. After a long moment, he retreated to his room, opened his laptop, and wrote an email to Adam, asking to meet and discuss the possibility of living with him. Adam's response to Ryan's email was swift. He expressed surprise and interest in reconnecting with his son, and suggested that Ryan visit him at his large house on the outskirts of the city. Although hesitant, Ryan accepted the invitation, curious and anxious about what this new connection could mean for him and his mother. On a Saturday afternoon, Ryan made his way to Adam's house, an imposing mansion with a well-kept garden and luxury cars in the driveway. As he was greeted by a housekeeper, Ryan couldn't help but feel out of place, a stranger in a world that seemed so different from his own. Adam received him in his study, a spacious room with shelves full of books and golf trophies. The man, now in his 60s, had an imposing presence. "Ryan, my son, it's good to finally meet again," Adam said, with a smile that Ryan found hard to interpret. "Your mother has told me a bit about your achievements. I'm impressed." "Thank you, sir," Ryan replied cautiously, still trying to get used to the idea of calling Adam Dad. "She helped me a lot. None of this would be possible without her support." "Yes, Michelle has always been very determined," Adam said, his tone slightly condescending. "But now you're here, and there's much more I can offer to help with your future." The two spent the afternoon talking. Adam showed interest in learning more about Ryan's studies and life, but also made sure to emphasize his own views on success and the importance of holding a prominent position in society. Over time, Ryan began to notice a growing disconnect between Adam's words and the values his mother had taught him. Adam spoke of power and influence as if they were the only worthy pursuits, and referred to Michelle in a way that Ryan found increasingly disrespectful. "Ryan, you're a man now, and real men need to know how to stand on their own. We can't always cling to our mother's skirts," Adam once said, a comment that made Ryan internally cringe. Despite his initial hesitation, Ryan decided to give this new relationship a chance, moving into Adam's house, hoping that maybe over time things would improve. However, the longer he spent with Adam, the more Ryan realized the mistake he had made. Adam's influence was corrosive. His worldview and attitude toward people were at odds with everything Ryan valued. The breaking point came when Ryan overheard Adam belittling Michelle openly during a business call, referring to her as that inferior woman who thinks she knows what's best for my son. It was a shock for Ryan, who had always seen his mother as the epitome of strength and dedication. He realized he could no longer ignore who Adam truly was. With a heavy heart and newfound clarity, Ryan decided it was time to go back home, to where true values and love resided. Ryan's decision to leave Adam's opulent residence wasn't easy. He had entered hoping to find a mentor, perhaps even the father he had never fully had in his life. However, what he found was a harsh and cold reality. Adam's wealth and status were accompanied by a worldview Ryan couldn't accept. As he packed his bags, Ryan felt a whirlwind of emotions. There was a mix of disappointment, relief, and above all, a growing appreciation for his mother Michelle's sacrifice and love. He realized that the true values he wanted to cultivate in his life were the ones she had taught him through her example, not Adam's empty pretensions of grandeur. Driving back to the modest apartment he shared with his mother, Ryan rehearsed in his mind what he would say to her. He knew he had made a mistake by drifting away, lured by the deceptive allure of Adam's wealth. Now he needed to make things right, starting with a sincere apology. When he arrived home, he found Michelle sitting at the sewing table, focused on her work. She looked up, surprised to see Ryan with his bags. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ryan set his bags down and approached her, his expression a mix of sadness and determination. "Mum," he began, his voice trembling, I'm sorry I was wrong, and no excuses can change that. I let the wrong things influence me. But I'm back now, and I want to make things right." Michelle, with tears in her eyes, stood up and hugged her son. "I knew you would come back, my dear. I knew you would see the truth for yourself. I'm just happy you're home, safe." This moment of reunion was filled with emotions. Ryan felt the warmth and love that only a true home can offer, and it rekindled in him the desire to be better, to live up to his mother's sacrifice. With Ryan back home, the small apartment he shared with Michelle quickly filled with new energy. The reconciliation between mother and son not only re-established the bond that had been temporarily shaken, but also ushered in a new phase of growth for Ryan. Recognizing the weight and value of his mother's sacrifices, Ryan dedicated himself with renewed zeal not only to his studies but also to household responsibilities. He realized that every act of help at home was a way to demonstrate his appreciation and gratitude. Michelle, observing this change, felt a mixture of relief and pride, watching her son mature before her eyes. Ryan found a part-time job at a local pharmacy, an opportunity that allowed him not only to contribute financially, but also to complement his medical education with practical experience. This job was not just a means to earn money, it was also a way for Ryan to connect with the community, help real people with their health needs, and learn the importance of human care in medical practice. Ryan's co-workers and the pharmacy's customers quickly noticed his diligence and his ability to empathize. He applied the lessons learned in college and his mother's observations about compassion and dedication, becoming a beloved member of the pharmacy team. Alongside his work, Ryan continued his studies with vigor. He now saw medicine not just as a path to a prestigious career, but as a vocation to serve and make a difference in people's lives. The long nights of study were now accompanied by discussions with Michelle about the social impact of medicine and how he could use his skills to contribute meaningfully to society. Thus, Ryan's growth was not only academic or professional, but deeply personal and ethical, shaped by the values Michel instilled in him and the experiences they shared together. This was a time of preparation and reflection, where the foundations of his future were solidly built on the principles of love and sacrifice. Finally, the big day of Ryan's graduation arrived. The auditorium was filled with proud family members and friends, all eager to see the graduates receive their diplomas. Michel, dressed in one of the dresses she had sewn herself, sat in the front row, her heart overflowing with joy and pride. She looked at Ryan, who was among his classmates, all dressed in their caps and gowns. The realization of their dream was in sight, and the sacrifices they both had made seemed to finally be worth it. The ceremony was filled with inspiring speeches, applause, and the traditional awarding of diplomas. When it was Ryan's turn to walk across the stage, a murmur of admiration swept through the auditorium. He was known for his dedication and compassion, qualities that had deeply impacted everyone around him during his years of study. As Ryan received his diploma, he was also invited to give a speech as one of the top students in the class. He walked to the microphone with a mix of nervousness and determination. He looked out at the audience, his eyes finding Michel's, and began to speak. "Dear classmates, professors, family and friends," Ryan began, his voice steady despite the evident emotion. "Today, as we graduate, we are about to embark on a journey that will challenge us to use our skills and knowledge to make a difference in the world. But before we look to the future, I want to reflect on what truly brought us here." Ryan paused, collecting his thoughts. "For me, this journey was made possible by the love and sacrifice of an incredible person. My mother, Michel. She sacrificed more than I can express to see me standing here today." The audience applauded, many eyes turning to Michel, who wiped a tear from her face. "More than learning about medicine, I learned from my mother the value of compassion, resilience, and genuine care for others. These lessons have shaped my worldview and, more importantly, my vision of what I want to be as a professional." Here, Ryan took a longer pause, taking a deep breath. "That is why, after much reflection, I have decided that I will not follow the traditional path of medicine. Instead, I will dedicate my career to education. I want to inspire and teach the next generation, just as my mother inspired and taught me. I believe that through education I can touch even more lives and, in a different way, continue to heal." The revelation was a surprise to many, but also an inspiration. The applause was long and warm. Ryan smiled, grateful, knowing that he had made the right choice for himself, a choice that honored not only his own aspirations, but also the values that Michel had instilled in him. After the ceremony, as Ryan and Michel celebrated together, they discussed the next steps. Ryan already had plans to enroll in a master's program in education. Michel, for her part, expressed her unwavering support, emotional and proud of her son's conscious and altruistic decision. In the years following Ryan's graduation, his decision to pursue a career in education proved to be both challenging and extraordinarily rewarding. He enrolled in a renowned master's program in education, where his innovative ideas and approaches quickly caught the attention of professors and peers. Ryan was determined to create an educational environment that not only imparted knowledge, but also inspired compassion and ethics. The relationship between Ryan and Adam, however, remained tense. Adam had never fully approved of Ryan's decision to abandon medicine, and his disapproval became even more evident when Ryan chose education as his career. To Adam, it was as if Ryan was wasting his potential. However, despite the lack of support from his biological father, Ryan remained steadfast in his convictions, strengthened by Michel's unconditional love and support. Ryan quickly excelled as an educator. He not only taught but also actively engaged with his students, mentoring them in both academic and personal matters. Many of his students saw him as a mentor and role model, someone who inspired them to seek more than just academic success and encouraged them to be active and caring contributors to society. The pinnacle of Ryan's career came when he was invited to speak at a national education conference. His presentation focused on the importance of teaching that valued medical ethics and social responsibility. The reception was enthusiastic, and Ryan established himself as an influential voice in the field of medical education. Meanwhile, Michelle watched with immense pride. Each of Ryan's achievements reinforced the wisdom of her choices, her sacrifices, and the values she had instilled in him. She knew that although the journey had been arduous, each challenge faced had been a step toward achieving something greater. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give a like, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Until the next story.